All right, so the last thing we're going to look at is how a particular scene in a story can add to the plot or theme of that particular story. So to me, and you could argue definitely, and I totally agree with you that this short story is one big scene. But for the sake of this, let's break it up into three big parts. All right. So the first part to me is when Captain Torres enters the barber shop and asks for a shave, and the barber sort of begins to shave him. The next big chunk is when the barber starts to really contemplate whether or not to kill Captain Torres or just give him a shave, and ultimately lets him live. And then the third part, way at the end, the kind of twist at the end, is when Captain Torres thanks the barber for the beautiful shave and admits to him that he was told that the barber would kill him if given the opportunity, and he wanted to test that for himself. Kind of the final ending. All right. So these are the three big scenes in this text, or sections of the text, and I could have easily talked about the last one. A lot of people often talk about how the last and final scene leads to theme, and really kind of puts the plot all together. But I think you guys are already really comfortable with that. So I wanted to show you how to do that with a different scene. So I'm going to look at the second scene where the barber contemplates and ultimately decides not to kill the captain. All right. And we're going to talk about how that builds the plot and to theme. So let's read this real quick. This is that pivotal moment where he decides what to do. Do I murder him? Which is it, murderer or hero? My destiny hinges on the blade of this razor, right? And so ultimately, the barber decides, I don't want to be a murderer. No, sir. And then he says, I don't want to be stained with blood, but lather and nothing else. You're an executioner and I'm only a barber. Each in his place. That's it. Each in his place. So the barber decides here for sure he does not want to be a murderer. And he kind of says a couple things. He says, earlier he says that violence, if I kill this man, nothing's going to happen. Another man will come in and just more violence will happen. Like, we cannot end this with violence, and there's always going to be another soldier who's going to come in and try to stop the rebellion from happening. So and it's interesting because he might be admitting that the rebellion isn't a cause that is worth it, or isn't a cause that can be achieved, or at the very least he's admitting that the way we're solving this through violence isn't working, right? The other thing he's decided is that if being a murderer means being a part of the rebellion, that's not worth it to me, right? I'm not going to be a murderer. Or even that means I might be a hero, because he would be a hero to some if he killed the captain. That's not worth it to him. He's a murderer first, and that's too much for him to take in. The other thing he says here is that you're an executioner and I'm only a barber. Each in his place. That's it. Each in his place. So he identifies with being a barber, right? And he calls the other guy Captain Torres an executioner, but for him, he's a barber first. He's not a murderer first. He's a barber second. And then third, he's part of the rebellion, right? He's sort of created a hierarchy of who he is and sort of looked at his identity, right, in this scene. Kind of a lot to go on here if you really think about it. And that's okay. That's his place. My place is a barber. And if my place is a barber, I must give this man the best shave I can, right? That's who he is. And so he's identified with that. So we see a huge development in his character, because when faced with who are you really, this barber has decided, I'm not a murderer, I am a barber, and then I'm part of the rebellion. And that's kind of further down on the totem pole, right? So we learned a lot about the barber here, and that's really what gets us there in terms of character. And there's some theme there too, right? Like, murdering is not worth sacrificing who you are as a person. That could be a theme. Or the rebellion cannot be achieved through violence, or change cannot be achieved through violence. That could be another theme here, right? So those are some ways that this adds to theme. And I'll definitely get character development of here as well. The barber finally concludes who he is as a person, right? What is this moral hierarchy, or what is identity hierarchy? And that is not a murderer, barber, and then part of the rebellion. And he says, I don't want to be stained with blood, by lather and nothing else. So if you know, shaving cream or lather is white, right? It's a symbol of purity, whereas blood, if he cut him, would be a symbol of him maybe sinning or doing something wrong or evil, or at least illegal, right? Or immoral. Okay. And so this is the lather wanting to be stained by that, by the pureness of that, and the fact that lather cleans, right? It takes away dirt, and it takes away the beard, brings you clearness and skin and gets to that bareness, shows that he wants to be innocent overall, and then maybe even being a barber to him is a symbol of innocence and purity and being cleanliness and those kinds of things. So this quote here that the barber says, it goes straight to the title, right? And it also goes straight to theme and what he's trying to say there about that. So there's a lot of connections there. Remember, like from the poetry unit, titles matter, right? Okay, so that's a look at how this is progressing the plot, right? It progresses the plot because it allows the Captain Torres to go free and, keep doing what he's doing, keeping order at all costs, even through violence and murder. Or death, and the barber kind of figures out who he is, his identity as a whole, and it also gets us to theme. So that's why that scene is really important. All right, folks. So I hope that helped. I hope that helped break down this story a little more. We got to archetypes, we got to complex character, we got to pivotal scenes and how they advance plot and build character and get to theme. And I hope that means you got a little bit more out of this story. And now we're going to take those skills and we're going to apply them to another story and see how you start playing with complex characters, archetypes, and specific scenes or isolated scenes and how they get to theme.